The house used to be my sanctuary. A quiet space where the only sounds were the soft hiss of tea, the tap of my typewriter, and the wind nudging the curtains. That silence, for years, was my balm. My armor. My answer to the world's noise. But now it's changed. That same silence is filled with something heavier, her presence. I hear her in the kitchen every morning. Pouring water. Clinking cups. Moving like a ghost that pretends it belongs. And maybe it does now, she's been living here for 3 weeks. Celine. My cousin. The woman who once dismantled my life with a whisper. It was 22 years ago, but the memory is crisp. I had just submitted the first draft of what I believed would be my breakthrough novel. Exhausted, grieving a relationship, drinking far too much coffee, and living off adrenaline. That's when she made her move. "I'm worried about Elizabeth," she had told the board. She hasn't been herself. They believed her. She played the role perfectly, sympathetic, calm, professional. I didn't stand a chance. I was painted as unwell, unreliable, unfit. I was fired within a week. She took my job. My office. My editor, the man I trusted. And worst of all, she took my voice. Because no one wants to publish a writer they think is losing her mind. The publishing house collapsed 2 years later, but by then, I was long gone, writing in solitude, rebuilding my name book by book. And now? Now she works for me. She came to my doorstep thin, pale, desperate. Said she'd do anything. That no one else would hire her. I should have closed the door. I should have walked away. Instead, I offered her a job, as my assistant. No trust. No warmth. Just structure. She now brings me tea every morning, labels my chapter drafts, and addresses me as Madame Moreau. But I don't forget. Every movement she makes is a reminder that betrayal doesn't always come with knives, sometimes it comes with a smile and shared blood. And this time, I'm the one writing the ending. The attic is the coldest room in the house. Not just because of the drafty window or the creaking wood, but because of what's kept up there, the box I swore I'd never open again. The box with the red ribbon. This morning, I asked her to bring it down. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. She knew. She returned with it 10 minutes later, the box trembling in her hands like a memory she didn't want to remember. She placed it on the table without meeting my eyes. "Here," she said. I took it gently. It was lighter than I expected. But its weight wasn't in its mass, it was in what it held. The ribbon fell away easily, no resistance. Inside, everything sat exactly as I left it. My original manuscript, the one she copied and submitted under her name. The emails I never sent, rewritten by her to sabotage my reputation. Handwritten notes she forged to look like the ramblings of a woman unraveling. And the photo, the two of us at our first book launch, her smile wide, mine unsure. Then, at the very bottom, the letter. Her letter. Folded, faded, and still poisonous after all these years. She wrote it to her then boyfriend. My editor. If they believe she's unstable, they'll have to let her go. No one publishes a writer they can't trust. I'll take her place when she falls. I always do. When I look up, she's still there. Watching. Pale. Silent. "Do you remember writing this?" I ask. She doesn't speak. Just nods. "I didn't keep it out of spite," I say. "I kept it to remind myself that survival sometimes means carrying proof, not anger." She flinches. "I don't want an apology, Celine." Her lips part, but she stops herself. "What do you want then?" she finally asks, her voice barely above a whisper. I close the box. I want to write again. But this time, I won't be editing the truth. I walk past her with the box under my arm, feeling the cold lift slightly as I leave the room. Behind me, she stands in the doorway, the same way she did years ago. Except now, she's the one waiting to be seen. The next morning, I woke before the sun. Not out of habit, but out of urgency, that restless pull only writers know, when the story won't wait for your body to catch up. Words burned behind my eyes. They had been waiting for decades. I lit a small lamp. Sat at my desk. Placed my fingers over the keys. And I began. Not the polite version. Not the filtered, softened, market-friendly memoir publishers love. No. I wrote the truth. Raw, exposed, exactly as it happened. I wrote about the betrayal. The office politics. The manipulation. The morning I was escorted out of my publisher's building like I'd committed a crime. The way the door closed behind me with the same finality as a coffin lid. I wrote about the nights I couldn't sleep. About watching my books disappear from shelves. About the shame I carried in my own home. And then, I wrote about her. I didn't use a pseudonym. I didn't mask her behind clever metaphors. I called her by name, Celine Moreau. Every keystroke felt like cutting a thread from the net she'd wrapped around me for years. Celine entered quietly with tea, as always. She glanced at the pages piling beside the typewriter, but didn't ask what I was writing. She didn't need to. By the fourth day, the chapter that held her story had grown long and detailed, word for word, line for line, the anatomy of betrayal. That afternoon, she placed an envelope beside my typewriter. My resignation, she said, eyes averted. I slid it back without reading. You don't get to leave before the truth does. She blinked. Swallowed hard. Then nodded. Every morning after that, she returned without protest. She brewed the tea. Sorted the mail. Stayed silent. But sometimes I caught her glancing at the pages. As if looking for herself. Not in praise, but in warning. When I finished the manuscript's final paragraph, I sat back in my chair and exhaled. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't closure. It was freedom. Later that night, she met me in the kitchen. May I read it? She asked. I shook my head gently. You lived it. She said nothing. Just stood there, holding her own breath like it might break. I'm not writing this to hurt you, I added. She raised her eyes. Then why write it at all? I didn't flinch. Because some truths deserve a voice louder than the silence that buried them. The book was released in October. By November, it was in every independent bookstore, on the staff picks table in chains, and topping bestseller lists I had long given up dreaming about. Readers devoured it. Reviewers called it a brutal, elegant confrontation with betrayal. Some praised my courage. Others wondered why I'd waited so long. I didn't answer interviews. I didn't do press tours. I let the pages speak for me. After all, they had waited the longest. Celine remained in the house. Not because she had to. But because I didn't send her away. She stayed out of the spotlight. She cooked quietly. She labeled mail. She watched as strangers on the internet turned her into a symbol, a cautionary tale in the comments section of a story she once owned. Then, one morning, I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the table. A copy of the book was in front of her, open to the chapter that bore her name. She didn't look up. You didn't make me a monster, she said. But you didn't spare me either. I poured myself tea. Sat across from her. I gave you the truth. I thought you burned that letter, she added, almost to herself. I wanted to, I replied. But something told me, you'd need to read it one day. Her hands trembled slightly as she turned another page. I don't remember being that cruel. I met her eyes. That's the thing about cruelty. We rarely remember it. But the people we leave behind do. She closed the book. Silence. Then she whispered. I'm sorry. Not as a weapon. Not as a plea. Just as a fact. As if she finally understood the weight of what she'd done. I nodded once, not to accept, but to acknowledge. Some bridges don't burn with fire. They crumble slowly under the weight of silence, memory, and time. That chapter had been written. But forgiveness was not its ending. It was its sequel. And that, I hadn't written yet. Winter came slowly that year. Snow lingered on the branches like breath that hadn't exhaled. The house creaked more than usual. The fire took longer to catch. But inside, something had shifted. Not just in the silence between us, but in the way we carried it. Celine no longer avoided my gaze. She didn't shrink from the manuscript lying on the coffee table or the ringing phone that came with offers, invitations, praise. She simply moved around it. Like someone who had accepted she was part of a painting she once tried to erase. One evening, she sat down across from me. Her voice was low. Steady. I'm leaving. I looked up from my notes. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. I found a job. A small publisher in the South. They don't know who I used to be. I'd like to keep it that way. I nodded. She placed an envelope on the table. A train ticket. A forwarding address. A letter I didn't open. I'm not running away, she said. I'm just letting go. Her fingers brushed the table once, like she was saying goodbye to the past in small gestures. You don't owe me anything, Elizabeth, she continued. But thank you for not slamming the door. I almost smiled. I thought about it, I said. This time, she did smile. A real one. The kind that didn't ask for forgiveness, only recognition. The next morning, she was gone. No suitcase left behind. No mess. Only a note on the kitchen table. Thank you for the silence. It taught me more than noise ever did. For days, I didn't touch the note. Eventually, I tucked it between the pages of a new notebook. A fresh one. Blank. The silence she left behind wasn't heavy. It was soft. Like snow falling over old scars. I began writing again. Not memoir. Not vengeance. Something else. A novel about two women. One who betrayed, and one who refused to stay broken. But this time, the ending was different. They didn't reconcile. They didn't become friends. They simply became free. Because freedom, I've learned, doesn't always come with justice. Sometimes it comes with letting go of the version of yourself that needed revenge. I still hear her footsteps sometimes, ghost echoes in the hallway. But I no longer feel the weight. Now, when I sit down to write, the page doesn't glare back at me in accusation. It waits. And I meet it. Whole. Steady. Unafraid. The final words of my new manuscript. Some stories deserve to be written, even if they never get read. I close the notebook. Place it on the shelf beside the others. And walk into the garden. There's a stillness in the air. And this time, it belongs to me.